2024 meeting of the Ann Arbor's Renters Commission. The purpose of the Renters Commission is to advise the City Council and the City Administrator in matters affecting renters in the city. The Ann Arbor Renters Commission is made up of voting members who are appointed by the mayor and approved by City Council, 2 non-voting City Council liaisons, 2 non-voting members representing different landlord perspectives, and a non-voting representative to the University of Michigan Student Legal Services. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, you'll be able to speak through the webinar by, oh wait, I think this is your part, Sarah.
Oh yeah, that is my part. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, you will be able to speak through the webinar link or by phone, depending on your method of access to this meeting. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 935-8080-1941. To be called on to speak, callers must press *9 if listening by phone or use the raise a hand feature if viewing through the web link. You will then be called upon by a city staff person or by or by using the last 3 digits of their phone number.
Sarah, you're muted.
Oh, city staff will indicate when callers have 30 seconds left of their 3-minute comment period. After 3 minutes, they will be placed on mute so we can proceed to the next speaker. We will be moving on to roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Lowe's is absent. Commissioner Else is absent. Commissioner Droppelman.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Ratcliffe, I'm here in Ann Arbor. Commissioner Chen is not here yet. Councilmember Radina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
And Councilmember Harrison sent a message earlier saying that she had a family matter to attend to tonight and couldn't make it. Commissioner Good. Not here. Commissioner Pitts.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Liao.
Here in Albion, Michigan.
Okay. Commissioner Wood.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, is it Larson? Please tell me your last name. I don't want to get it wrong.
It's Larcenies.
Okay, Commissioner Larcenies.
I'm present in Paw Paw, Michigan.
Welcome. And Commissioner Rosen.
Hi, I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Okay, because we have two new commissioners, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves and share our perspectives of what we bring to the Renters Commission and why we decided to serve. I'll go first. I've been a renter in many cities. I was a heavy mover, shall we say, and coming back to Ann Arbor and renting in Ann Arbor, I saw that there could be some improvements, and I just want renters to have what they need. Commissioner Wood.
Thank you. After looking at actually watching the last meeting held, I realized, oh, gee, I better prepare something. So I'm going to read to you. Okay. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to serve on the Renters Commission. I first came to Ann Arbor in the late 70s as an MSU student for a summer job. I liked it so much that I just kept coming back 3 times over the years until settling here with my daughter in 1995. I've been a renter of Ann Arbor apartments in 4 different complexes, 2 houses, 1 condo, 1 duplex, and a senior high-rise. Squeezed in there years ago, I also had a brief stint as an assistant manager of an apartment complex in the Detroit metro area, as well as acquiring a completely unused realtor's license. However, that summer of study at the real estate company was very educational. My career was in nonprofit public health and safety, and I emphasize nonprofit with an unplanned early retirement. So I sit before you representing the low-income senior population who needs affordable housing. Not the U of M alumni retirees rolling it in, returning to their alma mater with the cash to get into bidding wars and jack up the price of real estate here. That I witnessed over and over in the condo complex I rented in for 7 years. During that same time, the seniors I knew of living in the apartment complex across the road were having to move out due to the skyrocketing rent. When the condo I was renting sold, I still had family here and wasn't ready to leave Ann Arbor. The lesser apartment I moved to was now costing $500 more a month. Fortunately, I live with someone who can pay most of that exorbitant rent, which rises annually. So I bring you that perspective and the knowledge that public health and safety are going to be growing issues for renters, especially for seniors and others with health issues. Increasing power outages and rising summer temperatures do not go well together. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome again.
Thanks.
And we,
Oops.
we look forward to hearing more from you and your perspective.
Thank you.
Commissioner Liao?
Yes, hi. I am a second-year student at the University of Michigan, and I lived in dorms my first year, but now, like 2/3 of students, I am moving off campus and I am renting a house with 3 other people. And so I'm here to mostly provide the student perspective, since Ann Arbor wouldn't be Ann Arbor without University of Michigan and University of Michigan students. And since that's such a big part of the renting community here in Ann Arbor. And I'm also actually fairly new. This is only my second meeting, so you two aren't the only ones who are still figuring out the ropes.
Thank you. And I think it's my third meeting as chair, so we're all figuring out the ropes. Okay, Commissioner Larsenes?
Hi, I attended University of Michigan from 2011 to 2015. Lived in 3 different apartments then. I moved to Kalamazoo, was also a renter there. And I moved back to Ann Arbor in 2021 to operate my family's business downtown. And in the fall of 2022, my apartment was deemed uninhabitable due to a water leak that was ignored, and we had a pretty severe mold problem. So that was really my motivation for applying for the Renters Commission, to try to prevent a situation like that from happening to other renters. Yeah, I'm in my, I think, 6th unit in Ann Arbor, so I've seen a bit of variety in the rental housing.
So, welcome, and we look forward to your perspective and your input. I'll say the same thing that I said to Commissioner Liao on her first meeting, which is feel free to jump right in. You're here because your input is welcomed, and we need to hear what it is that you have to say. Okay?
Thank you.
Commissioner Rosen?
Hi, my name is Gail Rosen. I have been living in Ann Arbor for 30 some years now. have been for the last 15 years the housing attorney at Student Legal Services, and so I serve on the Renters Commission as a liaison between U of M and the Renters Commission. And like Michelle, bring the students, or at least hope to bring the students' perspective.
Thank you. Sarah, who is substituting for Kristen tonight.
Hi there. My name is Sarah Lanise. I am the deputy clerk at for the city clerk's office, specifically elections and outreach. I'm like I like to call myself like the mega staff liaison. I help all of the staff liaisons across all of our 64 boards, like with anything that they possibly need. So today, one of my staff liaisons needed me, so I'm here.
And we appreciate you being here so we could hold the meeting tonight. Commissioner Droppelman?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, so I am one of two landlord representatives on the commission here. But I started out as a renter when I was attending University of Michigan, probably like most everyone else who attends the U. Later, I liked it well enough that we stayed around, and along the way managed to acquire a couple of houses downtown, one of which we rent and the other that we live in. So very small landlord, but have some experience in that area, and do represent all the folks who have maybe one house, maybe two houses that they're trying to keep going. So thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioner Pitts?
Hi, my name's Kimberly Pitts. I live here in Ann Arbor about 20 years, and I do represent the perspective from the low-income housing. And I just wanted to be a part of the community and kind of help and understand, about the renters and the prices that kind of keep increasing and why people are moving, and just different things that I can help with the community. So I am happy to meet all you new people. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Attorney Reiser?
Sorry. Hello, my name is John Reiser. I'm an assistant city attorney, and I work with the Renters Commission. I also work with the building department and rental housing department on rental housing complaints, early leasing complaints, short-term rental complaints. So I work with those folks as well. Welcome, new members.
Thank you. And Councilmember Radina?
Yeah, hi, I am Travis Radina. I am the council member from Ward 3 here in Ann Arbor. I have been one of the council liaisons to Renters Commission since it was created, and in large part, I think, because I helped to spearhead creating it, recognizing that the majority of our residents here in Ann Arbor are renters and needed more of a voice in our city government. And so I've been excited about some of the work that we've been able to do and are continuing to do together, and just appreciate all of you for your service. So thank you for continuing to serve.
Thank you. And normally at this time, we would go over the approval of the agenda and the minutes, but because we don't have quorum, we're just going to move on to the first public comment. Sarah?
Yes, I will read. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak up for 3 minutes. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 935-8080-1941. If you would like to address the Renters Commission, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. I will select callers that have raised their hand during using the last 3 digits of your phone number or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. You can say something like, I'm sorry. Please state your name at the beginning of the comment if you feel comfortable doing so. I see no one online. So seeing no additional speakers, I will close this section of public comment.
Okay, then we're gonna move on to item number 7A, which is the update on the junk fee ordinance. Councilmember Radina, or can you give us an update on that, please? Or Attorney Reiser?
Either way, if you want me to start, Travis, I can, or if you want to start, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the lead, John, if you want me to, and then feel free to jump in since you guys are working on drafting also. Yeah, so this has been something that we've been talking about for a while here. I think started initially as a conversation about how to address some of the non-refundable waitlist fees that we're seeing throughout the community. And really through our conversations with Attorney Reiser and his colleagues, this has expanded a bit more into how we address really all junk fees in renting. And so we were in the process of working on this. One of the things that we got an initial draft back from the attorney's office. Councilmember Harrison and I have been reviewing it. I provided some additional feedback, and I know that they're working to continue to incorporate that. Some of the things that we are trying to address are really so as I shared with Chair Ratcliffe earlier today, I think, I am somebody who believes in trying to achieve rent transparency as much as possible in our law. And so, acknowledging that the reality is that we don't control rent. We don't have the ability to control rent. And so landlords are ultimately going to charge what they're going to charge for occupying a residence or an apartment. But one of the things that I would like for us to get to rein in are all of these kind of hidden fees or extra fees that really make it nearly impossible for renters to be shopping apples to apples in the marketplace. Because, if I'm making a calculation about how much I can afford to pay in rent, and over here I'm looking at $1,000 a month, and over here I'm looking at $1,200 a month, and I say, oh, I'm going to go with $1,000 a month, and then I get in and find out that there are actually like $350 a month in extra fees. It didn't end up being the right financial choice for me. So one, I think we want to work on simply outright banning all pre-tenancy fees. So these fees that are essentially charging you for the right to look for an apartment, these non-refundable waitlist fees. We have been in conversations. I've shared with a few folks. There's kind of been some back and forth on an application fee at all. I think we've kind of landed in a compromise place, acknowledging that there is a cost to an application of saying, like, if someone charges an application fee, that the city should maybe look at capping what that fee can be, so that it's not a profit-making endeavor, but actually covering the administrative costs of applying. I have asked the attorneys to also look at making that refundable for folks that don't actually get an apartment. And my reasoning for that is because what I also think is a challenge, and what I've heard cases of, is particularly with some of these non-refundable fees, where we have some predatory landlords who are choosing to take tons and tons and tons of applications when they know they don't have enough units to cover all of those applications. So trying to cut down on some of that unnecessary fee gathering as an additional source of profit. And then I am also trying to work with our attorneys to crack down a little bit more on the actual tenancy fees themselves. And so I think where we still have to have some conversation is really around some of those, if there is a cost of living in an apartment, why isn't that just part of rent and baked into rent? So again, tenants can make that apples to apples comparison about what their costs will be. But I think we have had some conversation about, what about those things that are optional add-ons that aren't for every unit? So is a pet fee acceptable? Is a parking fee acceptable if you're reserving a parking space where not everyone, it's not something that's made available to everyone. Those, I think, are still some of the conversations around kind of those optional add-ons, and where we need to figure out where we land on some of that. I would love feedback if people have it. But those are kind of some of the pieces we're still trying to work out so that we can get to a final draft here, hopefully in the next meeting or two of council.
Commissioner Rosen?
Did you guys talk at all about late fees as well?
We have spoken about late fees. I am kind of in the camp of the federal legislation that we're trying to model this after, which is that a late fee is a junk fee, and that it should be, if there is a late fee, that I think the federal legislation requires that it be essentially a down payment towards the next month's rent, rather than a legitimate fee. I'm kind of the viewpoint that if somebody is not paying their rent on time regularly, and it's that becomes one of the reasons for non-renewal or something like that, that's the way to address that. I don't think you should be profiteering off of somebody who's struggling to pay rent. And so we have talked about it. I would like to see junk fees, or that labeled as one of the junk fees. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, from, representing students, I see stuff all over the map. I mean, generally the courts have found, or seem to find, around $75, $100 is reasonable. But, I have tenants who their rent, there might be like 8 of them, and their rent is $6,000. They're paying 5% late fee every time they're late. I have another tenant who's, the landlord's imposed a daily fee for, it's $5 more every day she's late. So at the very least, some sort of really low, consistent figure. But if there's some cost associated with it, but they are really, the ones I'm saying are really outrageous in terms of what landlords are requiring of people. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, this is where I point back to both the federal legislation we're looking at, that's addressing rental junk fees, and also I believe what the Biden White House has endorsed is considering late fees a junk fee that should be outlawed. And that is the position that I take as well.
And I've got to say, we're seeing, and maybe, Michelle, as well from your experience, but I mean, I'm seeing a lot of additional fees now during the tenancy. Tenants are now being automatically enrolled in, what's it called? It's some sort of rent credit thing where, we'll automatically send your payment record to credit reporting agencies, but they have to pay in. We've got students who have to pay valet trash service, where they leave their trash outside and somebody comes into, I mean, there's just so many different fees added on that they can't opt out of, or even know. I mean, I realize I'm preaching to the choir here, but, or they're paying for insurance that they don't really even know it's not really clear what the insurance covers. So it really has, I mean, I've watched it in the last, I've been at Student Legal Services for 15 years. I've just watched these fees pile on, and there's more and more. And it's frustrating to see how these impact students' ability, not just students, but that's the people that I work with, but students' ability to afford housing in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Liao?
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Gail was talking about. Personally, I have like a $360 late fee if I have like 5 days late, and then it just adds on after that. And I also get a $50 fee if I like provide a check that can't be cashed or it bounces or something like that, which is another thing that I want to add on to be considered besides from just the late fee.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think part of our conversation, I think originally there was some discussion of trying to list out fees, and I think for me that becomes a little unwieldy and unrealistic, I think, because ultimately they'll change the name of it, and suddenly it's legal. Or they'll modify it slightly and then suddenly it's not banned. And so yeah, I think that frankly, I am supportive of getting rid of tenancy fees altogether. And so that's the conversation we're still having, and I'm waiting to get back a new draft. And I think one of the things that I've tasked our attorneys with, or that our attorneys are just tasked with by the nature of their job, is making sure that everything that we're doing, we think will pass kind of the smell test if this gets challenged in court. And so I think that they're making sure that we're doing that in the best way that we can, so that whatever we pass ends up holding and actually providing protection.
Commissioner Droppelman?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the what I think is the Ann Arbor standard lease, and I think section 4 includes a section on late fees. So if we think we're going to get rid of them, we should probably remove that from the Ann Arbor standard lease. Just pointing that out. It's not something I have a strong opinion on. We don't charge them, but I do note that I think it's in the standard lease.
And I have a question too before I call on you, Attorney Reiser. With the insurance, I don't know if you were talking about like just renter's insurance, because I do remember when we first moved back to Ann Arbor that my insurance broker had said that they had talked to students who had been basically just put onto renters insurance plans through their apartment complexes, and they didn't know what it was, what it meant, just that they were required to have it. Is that what you were talking about, Commissioner Rosen?
Yes, because I think, or at least some of the students that I've talked to think that they're getting renters insurance through the landlord, but really it's some sort of liability for insurance to cover the landlord. And so there's been, it seems to be some confusion about what they're paying for, because when I've seen students who think they have the renter's insurance, and then when they need the renter's insurance, find out that's not what their coverage is for. Yeah. So, I mean, it varies, obviously, by landlord, and these tend to be more of the high rises, the new high rises in Ann Arbor that have these. But, you know, I need to find out sort of what each different landlord or company, what their process is.
Okay, and
you're muted.
Yeah. The note came up. To piggyback off of that, Attorney Reiser, what's the difference in terms of, you know, renter's insurance and landlord insurance? Like, does landlord insurance cover anything within the unit that belongs to the renter, or how?
I guess I don't know. I have to see the document. I'm familiar with renter's insurance with a private company, but is like landlord insurance something like an appliance company charges you a little bit more if something goes wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, in my experience, oh sorry, it looks like
yeah.
Commissioner Rosen may know a little bit more.
Yeah, Gil.
No, go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say, in my experience back when I was renting, my understanding was kind of the landlord's insurance policy would be covering their property. So the structures themselves, anything, if they provide appliances, all of those types of things, they would be covered under the landlord's policy. And then it would be your obligation to get renter's insurance to cover your personal property within a unit. And so that's kind of what your insurance is meant to cover. It's a little surprising to me that there are landlords opting people into renters insurance policies, because if I remember correctly, when I was renting and went with a private policy, there was some level of kind of discussing what was in my apartment that I owned and kind of enumerating some of my property within it. And so that's surprising to me, but I guess I don't know how every policy is written. So
Yeah, I've had, I mean, students, or at least the students I've seen, can opt into some of these policies, but I think you're right. They're like liability coverage for the landlord, so that if the student does something that damages, I don't know, maybe there's a leak and it damages the property of the landlord, then they're covered for that. But they're not covered for their own, you know, if there was a leak or something and all their own personal property was damaged, they wouldn't be covered. But, you know, that was one situation that I saw. I really could look into what each sort of different apartment complex or the larger apartment complexes are offering, you know, because we want to try to make it less confusing for the students, and so they know what they're signing up for.
yeah, and that also maybe strikes me as a separate thing for us to dig into, because my guess is that that likely also wouldn't be covered as a fee if you're opting into an insurance policy. I don't, well, like, it may be charged the same way, but my guess would be that it's maybe not the same. But it's particularly odd to me also. I mean, like, if that's the case, Commissioner Rosen, like, it is concerning that, especially if they don't have the option to opt out, that tenants are essentially now paying for insurance for the landlord's property damages
So
potentially.
it seems, but let me do a little bit of kind of looking into it before we come back again, and I'll see what I can find and report back on. I would agree that that's probably, I mean, I think some landlords require some insurance and then say, but we have this one, and I just think, you know, I just think it can be confusing. So, but let me try to get some information, and I'll report back next month or the month after. We'll see.
Thank you, and I'm sorry it took so long, Attorney Reiser. I know you had your hand up earlier.
No, I was just going to ask Mr. Droppelman, when you say the standard Ann Arbor lease, so and I Googled that and I see online leases for University Towers, for Oxford, for CMB, for PMSI, and they don't appear to be that standard to me. And I'm wondering, is there some is that something the Washtenaw Area Apartment Association puts out, or what document are you referring to?
Possibly. I think there's a model lease for the University of Michigan as well as for the city of Ann Arbor, and I think that's what we use. The city of Ann Arbor's version is what I think I'm specifically referring to. I can look into that and see if I can provide a link.
Yeah, could you provide that to Kristen Vanderluck? Or
sure. Yep.
Or who'll get it to me?
Yep.
Or
Let me have a look
me.
and see if I can do that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? All right, then we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 7B, the update on the appointments. I think, as you can see right here, we have Commissioner Wood and Commissioner Larseny's. And so I believe this means that we have all of the voting members who are renters filled. And we still have the Health and Human Services Advisory Board, non-voting member available, and the attorney seat available. Is that correct? We're full otherwise?
I would have to check. I thought we had one more voting seat available. Let me double check on that really quick.
Okay. I
think you have one more voting seat available. My computer is going a teensy bit slow, 2 seconds, and then I can tell you.
I think, is that Robert's seat? Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, I think you have two available. On my records, I show that you have two voting seats available, a non-voting HHSAB rep and attorney renters advocate available.
So you're showing that we have two renter seats available plus the HHASB,
The SAB.
SAB, and the attorney seat.
Yes.
Okay. I know from a couple of meetings ago, people had wanted to have a discussion on just what the openings were and how soon we would get them filled. We were very lucky to be able to get Commissioners Wood and Larceny's in with a special vote of just one vote at City Council as opposed to the normal two votes because of how many members we were missing and the lack of quorum that we were having. Travis?
Yeah, I was just going to add to a little bit to that as well. And to the extent that folks here have people in their networks that they think might be good for this body, please encourage them to apply. This is citywide. We need more people to apply for boards and commissions. We are really looking back, as Chair Ratcliffe can share, like as we're looking back to fill some of these seats, we're looking at applications that are sometimes months, if not a year old, because we hadn't had vacancies. And now that we do, we haven't had recent applicants. And so particularly for the attorney's seat, I don't believe that we've had a qualified attorney attendance advocate position on a new application since the commission was founded, and we had two at the time. Obviously, we filled that with former Commissioner Rumel, for those of you who served with him. And since he has left, the additional person that applied looks like a great candidate. We've tried to reach out. We have not heard back from her to see if she's still interested. And so we're looking for an additional person in that capacity. We haven't gotten an application. And we are looking back. I think we reached out for one of the remaining seats. We'd reached out to someone that I think we're waiting to hear back from. And if we don't hear back, I believe we did have a backup person that was a more recent applicant that we're going to move to. But again, we'll continue to do outreach. I know the council liaisons on all of these commissions are often trying to look for folks so that we provide kind of diverse perspectives on our bodies. I think we've got a pretty diverse group of perspectives here at this commission, but to the extent that folks have others in their networks that might be good, please encourage them to apply.
Thank you, Councilmember Radina. Does anyone have any comments, questions? No? Then we're going to move on. Next on the agenda is an update on the short-term rentals. Earlier this summer, the commission was interested in knowing how many licensed short-term rentals there are in the city. And attached to the agenda was a spreadsheet of the short-term rentals. Did anyone have a chance to look at that? Or Sarah, I don't know, can you pull it up to the screen? Thanks. One thing that I noticed when I was looking at that is that some of the short-term rentals that say that they've been renewed are there's an expiration date on the license. Like the license is expired, and so I'm not quite sure what that means. Also, we have, I think, like under 500, I think there's been under 500, I'd like to say, short-term rentals between ones that were denied, issued a license that was renewed, or someone who let their license expire. Some of them appear to be, individuals who have maybe one or two short-term rentals. Others are some of the apartment complexes that were, I believe, approved by council to have some of the units as short-term rentals as well. One of the things that we were wanting to talk about was actually with rental inspection services, because we had a question as to, with the new software contract, kind of how enforcement was going to go, if it was going to change, I believe. I admit that I do not know much about the process for the short-term rental license. John, can you explain that a little bit more for our new members?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the municipal ordinance right now that talks about the application process. So hang on a minute.
So as you can see, there's about 14 pages right now.
Yeah.
Councilmember Radina?
Yeah, thanks. So I also wanted to just kind of add a little bit of additional background, because this is something, short-term rental enforcement is something that came up on council shortly after I joined. Council had taken, before I joined council had taken some action to regulate and prohibit really short-term rentals in areas that are zoned residential. And so I believe that we had to go back and tweak the ordinance in large part because the city was going to get sued by existing short-term rentals for being an existing non-conforming use. The city had been issuing licenses to them as rental properties, and as a result, they'd essentially been granted permission by the city to operate in those areas. And so existing short-term rentals in residential areas were allowed to continue operating as we adjusted the ordinance. New short-term rentals should not be getting approved, to my knowledge, in residentially zoned areas of the city. There are some, as Chair Ratcliffe noted, there are a couple of exceptions to that, as we have approved some new housing complexes where we're ultimately going to get and I remember one specifically. So I'm gonna blank on the name of it now, but essentially the new proposed development that's planned to go in over by Venue, by the golf course area. As part of the rezoning request, there was a request that some of the units in that be reserved for short-term rental use. And council ultimately kind of weighed that and agreed to accept it, because at the end of the day, the net gain of housing was considerably more than what was currently there. And so there seemed to be some demonstrated need for some short-term rentals in the area. And because we were going to get more housing, that was approved. But in a normal circumstance, someone could not like turn a current house into a short-term rental. That would be against local ordinance. And John, maybe you can add, I know, to your original question about like what expired means on here. My understanding was, if I'm remembering correctly from our conversations at the time, was of those short-term rentals that were kind of allowed to continue operating as non-conforming uses within the current zone, they would be able to continue doing that until they let their licenses expire, at which point they may no longer be allowed to continue operating as a short-term rental in that residential zoned area. And so that may be what that's showing here, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what that is or not.
I'm just trying to look at the, we have a really good website. There's a short-term rental guide that talks about it. So Rosanita, I don't know if you have a kind of a general question. Have you been to the short-term rental page?
I have.
Pardon?
I was just trying to remember some of the questions that people had before. But I think two of the people who had more of the questions about the short-term rentals aren't here tonight. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I mean, as of right now, for me, I think the questions that I have, I think, are more probably for like rental inspection services. But if, say, I own a property that's currently a short-term rental here in a residential area, and then I sell that property, does the license then go to the new owner?
That's generally how zoning works, is that it runs with the land. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, that is correct. It was a big part of our discussion, but ultimately, because of the way because this is written into zoning, we couldn't modify it, because one of the challenges was essentially by allowing those existing short-term rentals to continue operating in perpetuity, really. You were almost creating kind of a monopoly in those zones. I think both the trade-off of the potential we would likely have lost a lawsuit had they challenged us, but also because so an owner-occupied location can do short-term rentals. So I could have a short-term rental here in my house because it's owner occupied, because I'm ultimately the family living here, but also because short-term rentals could hypothetically pop up in other zoned areas of the city, that it wasn't necessarily a true monopoly in that sense.
And for the TC1 zoning, will short-term rentals be allowed within that new zoning? Because it's technically not residential?
I would have to get back to you on that. I'll have to check.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wood?
As I was reviewing the video from the last meeting, it was mentioned that Kristen mentioned that there was a new guided to short-term rental something or other. Sounded like it was a booklet or a PDF or something that we could read and better understand from. She said she would send it out. So has anybody seen that? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now. It's called the Guide to Short-Term Rentals, and it is a PDF file on the city's website, and you could Google Ann Arbor short-term rental guide to short-term rentals. And it talks about what a short-term rental is, what types are permitted, whether non-principal residents or principal residents. And there's two kinds of principal residents: homestay, where it's kind of like a bed and breakfast where somebody stays in your basement and you're there as well. And there's also a whole house where you have a house and you move out for up to 30 days, and then somebody comes in. Those can be a problem for neighbors because there are people who own houses and they just kind of move out and let these short-term rental tenants kind of come in. and then it can create, issues with the trash and noise and things like that. Then there's sometimes one of the issues that comes up is whether someone really resides there or not. You'll have someone who owns a few houses, and they'll have one that's their principal residence, but they don't spend much time there, and the tenants do. That's often the most expensive house that's their principal residence, and they'll stay somewhere else. And another one of the issues with that we see with short-term rentals is how many guests are allowed to stay, and they kind of pack them in. So there's, in addition to the policy question of whether short-term rentals take off housing that would otherwise be available for long-term tenants, there's the nuisance is the right word, but there are the issues that come up when you have essentially a hotel with 20 people staying there most weekends in a residential neighborhood.
My understanding from the meeting was that that this guide also has attached to it the application. And there was a discussion about how that was going to be communicated to the public so that people have a better idea of what's going on here, in Ann Arbor, that there is this special ordinance for this particular situation, in the hopes that, wasn't there some discussion about in the hopes that people would decide to not try to pursue that and become more long-term rentals? I
think that partly had to do with enforcement, is to, if they're operating one illegally, to try to get to talk to them about the merits of having a long-term rental versus the short-term rental. And the the application or front-facing information, part of that, I think we're talking about maybe like a complaint process or something. And part of that has to do with talking with the rental inspection services or building services department, where we're trying to get them to come to our meeting, I think in September, October, I think October. Just a sec, though. Sarah, Commissioner Chen is here as as the attendee. If you can let her in. Sorry about that. She's been waiting in there. So I think, is that what you were talking about, Commissioner Wood?
Well, I remember there's quite a bit of discussion about this, and several people seemed to feel that there was a need to better educate the public. And wasn't that like tabled to a education committee or something?
The tenant education committee, where we couldn't find a time for everyone to meet. So later on today's schedule, I was just going to make another announcement that I was going to send out another, when to meet, trying to get it so that we can have another tenant education committee meeting, because those aren't a set day and time. It's more when necessary and when people can give up like an extra hour of their time.
I understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
So just to follow up with that then, so you're still thinking about being proactive with this?
Yes.
With providing, okay. If you need any help, let me know.
Well, you'll get the email with the when to meet availability time, and hopefully, because I try our best to get the time where like everyone has said that they can meet.
Right, I know, it's herding cats.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Adina?
Thanks. Yeah. So I guess I just had a question more for the body, and I think I may have missed the last meeting when some of these questions might have initially gotten asked. Um, is there, I guess, what is the where is the interest in short-term rentals coming from in that? Is there something that you're hoping to potentially recommend from a policy perspective? Are you hoping to just be better educated on existing policy? I ask these questions because I wonder if maybe they're, other than Attorney Reiser, if there's maybe somebody from planning who could come and provide an update or answer questions who might be better in terms of staff expertise. And I know that I could also refresh myself because it's been several years now since we worked on this at the council table. And it's not something that I work with day to day because it's just not something that comes up normally. And so I guess I'm wondering from the Renters Commission perspective, what are some of the goals in having these conversations? Is it just to educate the public more? I guess, yeah.
It's multiple goals. One is to educate ourselves, as well as the public, because there does seem to be a lot of confusion about the short-term rentals. Are they allowed? Are new ones allowed? Are new ones not allowed? What's the application process like? How, if you do find one that's running illegally and in your neighborhood, then or next door, then how do you report that one, right? And then also, it was like, was it several months ago, the council had approved in the budget paying for a program that was supposed to, I guess, estimate or better estimate how many short-term rentals were operating in the area, including ones that are not licensed. And so since we were curious, so we were also kind of curious about how that was going to work, which is why Kristen was in contact with building and rental inspection services to have them give kind of a presentation to us in a few months. We knew that there was a lot going on within the department right now. And so I really want to say that we were looking at October, partly because of the green rental ordinance also. So we were thinking having building inspection services come after that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. And yeah, I think gathering some questions ahead of time that they can come prepared to address as part of their presentation could be really helpful as well to make sure that they're covering the topics you want them to cover. And I will follow up with Kristen also to make sure that just someone from rental inspection services is the best person, because from a kind of like, where are these allowed, are we allowing them in the future perspective, it might be important to have somebody from kind of the planning department there as well.
Okay, thank you. See, John, I saw your hand earlier.
My question is like educating the public from what perspective? How to open your own short-term rental? No. What happens if there's a problematic one next door to you? How do they work generally? What's allowed in a residential district? So like a series of questions could really help formulate a PowerPoint presentation that probably Pete provided, he gets the green light from Alicia and everyone, and I could help him put a PowerPoint together on how they work. There really are 3 good documents on the short-term rental. There's the guide to short-term rental. There's the complaint form, which is, there are boxes on that complaint form that are kind of summarizes where you can go awry on these. And there's also the sworn statement of principal residency, which has been changed and tightened up, which kind of spells out some of the criteria on what you can do and what you pledge to follow by way of the maximum occupancy. There's no magic number on how many people can be in these, because it's one or more persons related by blood, marriage, or adoption. So you could have a ginormous family in a residential, and then after they're gone, over the weekend, and the complaint comes in, we have to prove that the people that were there were or weren't related. Or you could have 4 persons plus their offspring, their descendants and their children. So you could have a family reunion in a principal residence, whole house where the owner moves out, and this family reunion comes in, and then you've got a whole bunch of folks there. So questions sent to Kristen Vanderlecht that would help form, I think, a presentation. But that's just my thoughts on that.
Thank you. And that was, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to have the Tenant Education Committee meeting, was to be able to come up with some of those questions. Councilmember Radina?
Yes, just circling back to answer the question that was asked earlier. Short-term rentals will not be allowed in TC1 zones. I did not think they would be, but I wanted to confirm that before giving the answer, and they are not permitted in that zoning use.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on discussion about the short-term rentals? Okay, then we'll close that out. And is it, now that we have Commissioner Chen, can we go back up to approving the agenda and the minutes?
Sure, of course, would love to.
Yeah, I think we'll have to grant ourselves a little leniency here in terms of following because we didn't have quorum. I think we can go back to the top of the agenda and just kind of start up there with quorum now. Officially calling the meeting to order.
Sorry.
Okay.
I do have a lot of things to take care of these days, but almost done. I'm very happy, and thanks for everybody and everything. Thank you.
Okay, well, then we're going to take a brief moment and go back to the item number 4, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
I'll be
Thank you.
second. I'll be second.
Okay, so the motion was made by Commissioner Wood and seconded by Commissioner Chen. Right. Sorry, I thought I had to yawn. The agenda is now open to either be approved as presented or open to be amended.
Our motion.
Okay, well, all those in favor of the agenda as presented, please unmute yourself and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, great. The agenda is now approved, although we're almost through. And next is the approval of the minutes from our June 20th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Our motion.
Motion by Commissioner Chen. Is there a second?
I don't think I can technically second, so
Commissioner,
quiet.
okay. Commissioner Pitts, can you second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the June 20th, 2024 meeting, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved, and we're going to move ourselves back down the agenda. For new business, we were going to have a discussion with Councilmember Ghazi Edwin about an affordable rental housing site, but that had to be postponed. And so next on the agenda is a discussion about tabling at the Green Fair. believe the Green Fair is September 20th? Sarah, do you? Okay.
It is.
Oops. And is it 5 to 8?
It is.
Okay. September 20th, 5 to 8. Normally the Renters Commission has a table at the Green Fair with information about the Renters Commission. I think we also give, even though it's the Green Fair, like give out the booklet or have the website that has the tenant and landlord booklet that you're supposed to get. And we need, I think, at least 2 people to table that evening. Are there any volunteers?
I really would love to go, but I will not be back until 6:30 to Michigan. So I'm sorry.
Okay, and the Green Fair is downtown near the campus area, if that helps anyone.
I think I'll be available.
I should be free too.
Okay, great. Then can we put you both down? Thank you. And Commissioner Pitts?
Yeah. Did you say the 20th?
Yes, September 20th.
Friday. Yeah, I can help out as well.
Okay, great.
Wait a minute, September 20th, right?
Right, September 20th from 5 to 8.
Yeah, I'll be there. I could be there too. I could be there too. If anybody, if nobody's there, I could be there. If anybody could go, then if you need anybody at that time, let me know. I would love to. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
Okay, well, we'll give the 4 names to Kristen for when she's back and coordinate from there. It might be where you don't have to be the whole time since there's 4 of you. It could, like, maybe doing shifts or something, because the Green Fair itself is pretty fun and interesting to attend. So if you did want to be able to get up, it'd be something that maybe we could arrange. But thank you all for volunteering. Next.
Sorry, Rosanita.
sorry.
I will also say that both Kristen and I will be in attendance, and so you won't be alone, and we will help bring any supplies that you may need. And yeah, you can come into shifts or whatever. It's a pretty good time. It's a really, really great time to talk to folks and to have that one-on-one conversation with a lot of people. I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, and moving on is the planning for the next tenant education meeting. Like I said, I'll be sending out a when to meet about that so we can come up with some of the questions. If you can't make the meeting, then emailing questions to talk about, I don't think would be in violation of the Open Meetings Act, because we won't be discussing those questions until the actual tenant education meeting. And then next is the plan for the September 19th Renters Commission meeting. I believe next month we think we had an invitation out to OSI and Dr. Stoltz about the green rental ordinance that that's, I think, completed or almost complete, that he wanted to do a presentation to the Renters Commission for that. And so that was the big thing for that meeting. It may also be where Councilmember Ghazi Edwin is ready to present about the affordable rental housing website as well. Councilmember Radina?
Thanks. I do want to caution, unless it's possible that she'll have somebody from her office do this. I believe that our next Renters Commission meeting will be during the delegation visit from our sister city, Tübingen.
Oh,
And I know that Dr. Stoltz is leading that visit, and so she may not be available during our next Renters Commission meeting.
it may be someone from her office.
Okay.
Because I don't think it was her specifically, because
And that makes total sense. I just wanted to warn that she may not be. She will be playing host to all of our wonderful guests from our sister city.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Regina. Oops. Is there anything else that people would like to see on the agenda for September? I also think at that time we may have another update on the junk fees, because that is something that we continue to ask every meeting as well. Okay, Councilmember Radina?
Sorry, I'm talking a lot during this meeting. Yes, I think we will absolutely be able to give another update. It is my hope that the update will be that it has been introduced at council. And so, although I recognize that is putting a lot of work on our incredible attorney down in the corner on my screen. And so, but I know that they're working diligently to get us to the finish line there. The other thing, I was going to save this for my council update, but it may be something to discuss at the next meeting. I just don't have enough details yet. We once again had someone actually come to our last council meeting and caught Councilmember Briggs at the end of the meeting. I have not gotten an update from her yet, other than it was another one of the residents of Courthouse Square, which continues to be a really problematic apartment complex, a very predatory apartment complex, and frankly, just not in condition that should be. So we are discussing, I'm going to be talking to Councilmember Briggs about what the content of that was. I know that we have tried to address issues with Courthouse Square before. It may be an enforcement issue for the city. It may not be something worth discussing at this table because it may not be like a policy item or anything that needs to be addressed. But it may be something that I could even provide an update on once I just have more information. I just want you guys to be aware that Courthouse Square unfortunately continues to be enough of a problem that residents are coming to our council meetings just asking for help. And so I know that it's been a topic for this body before, so I just wanted to keep you informed.
If you're not aware, Courthouse Square is senior apartments, and it's low income senior apartments, right? That is it somehow, I don't know if is licensed the right term, through the AAHC? Like, is there a relationship between the two? I know that the city doesn't run it.
I do not believe so, because I don't believe it would continue to be. I would have to check on that there's no relationship. But I know that it is privately owned and operated. So because that's one of the challenges is the owner is not local, and I believe they hire a local property manager from a city within 50 miles, which is what the law requires. But they're not local either. And so, but I don't believe that there's a formal relationship. No.
Okay, I think they're on like the second manager since when I started on the Renters Commission, and we've received a lot of complaints from different residents about the living conditions and the safety of living within that particular complex. Unfortunately, as the Renters Commission, it's not really written into our bylaws that we have any sort of enforcement capabilities. And we tend to just do a lot of information and referral services because of that. But I do wonder when this becomes part of the enforcement question that Commissioner Good has brought up at several meetings, which is at what point does the ability to operate an apartment complex within the city actually get taken away? Councilmember Regina?
Yeah, I think that's a valid question and one that we're probably not going to be able to answer on here unless I think that's a conversation we'll have to continue having with how we are currently enforcing and maybe if we need to make changes to that. I did just look up and I know that one of the issues we've dealt with last time was some pretty substantial surprise rent increases in what was meant to be affordable. And the reference then is that MISHDA is responsible for making sure that they're compliant with their affordable housing component. And so I believe they're the ones that are actually ensuring that they remain affordable rather than the Housing Commission locally.
Okay. Not necessarily with Courthouse Square, but just in general, if it's something that is the responsibility of MISHDA to enforce, then when we do get a complaint, is that something that Kristen should be telling them that you need to contact MISHDA? Here's their contact information.
It likely depends on the nature of the complaint. My guess is that the city would probably still be best to communicate that if we feel. So I would still suggest that folks file formal complaints with the city. It's always better for the city to be aware of what's going on within the city, and then if they need to get state authorities involved, or if officials within the city advise that the individual contact. But my guess is that we would get MISHDA involved if that became the case. But again, I don't know if the newest complaint is related to the affordability or if it's related to conditions or if it's related to, I know I've heard before about kind of extreme heat in some of the apartments, that air circulation isn't happening, things like it's not a great property from the tenant's perspective. And so there are a number of problems there.
Right. Commissioner Wood?
That was the senior high rise that I mentioned I lived in, and it was in bad shape 10 years ago. But at that time, there's a committee. It's like, I forget the name of the committee, but it's a committee of city council just for the downtown region. And they were at that time, they were very interested in hearing from me what was going on at courthouse. So if there's anything that the city can do, maybe the two committees could talk about how that problem, because it's a big problem. There's a lot of drug use there. It's not a good place to live.
Was that the DDA?
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that I don't know if we've referred anyone to the DDA about that. I know that John Reiser has gone and checked things out before with some of the complaints as well. Councilmember Radina, is the DDA another avenue?
I would be surprised by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not generally within the scope of what the DDA is managing. Although, I mean, it could have simply been at the time that it was such a problem that they were hearing about it as well that they got involved. But yeah, that's not generally something that the DDA would manage.
Okay. And what about the Human Rights Commission?
The Human Rights Commission, or the Human Rights Commission, is largely charged with kind of enforcement and oversight of our non-discrimination ordinance. And so
Mhm.
again, depending on the nature of the complaint, recommending a follow-up with filing a complaint with them. That is not something that's not an angle that I have heard yet from any of the tenants. They've more been kind of living conditions and price problems. But I will dig in with Councilmember Briggs on what the newest issue is. We'll also probably pull in, I think it may be in Ward 1, and so Councilmember Harrison and Councilmember Dish actually represent the area, and I know that they got involved last time, and so I'll make sure that they're looped in as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has a comment on the topic? If not, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, next on the agenda is the report from City Council.
I think you guys have all heard from me enough tonight, right? I don't know that I have anything new to add unless there are any questions about ongoing things at City Council. But I think I've kind of given you the big update of the thing we're working towards that's specifically related, which is kind of this junk fee ordinance, and hoping that we'll be able to get something to the table here relatively soon. The benefit of it taking us a little bit longer to review and get the drafts to where we want them to be is that hypothetically students will be back when this is getting passed, and so hopefully that increases the awareness if it ultimately does get passed by council, because I think a lot of the activism we've seen, particularly around the waitlist fees, have come from students because they're the ones who have been targeted. So we want to make sure that there's widespread awareness so that if this passes, I'm hopeful that it will, that they'll be able to be aware that it happened and start filing complaints when it's in effect.
When's the next city council meeting?
The next city council meeting is on Monday, but
When's the one after that?
Then the first and third Monday in September.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, next is the report from HHSAB. Our commissioner who normally attends that meeting isn't there. I feel like they're off for the summer. And so we'll move on to next on the agenda, which is the report from the staff liaison. Sarah, did Kristen leave anything to report on?
She didn't. She just is sad she's not here.
She deserves a vacation, especially after the doing everything for the primaries.
For sure.
Okay, we're on to the second general public comment.
Okay. This is the second opportunity for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes. If you would like to address the Renters Commission, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. I will select callers that have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of your phone number or by the name available. You will hear automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute any television or background sound so that way we may hear you clearly. The meeting ID is 935-8080-1941. I don't see anybody waiting in the wings, so I will close this section of public comment.
Okay, the last item on the agenda before adjournment is the communications that we've received. We received, is it 1, 2, 3 communications. Can you show the communications, please, Sarah? Thank you. The first one was about Courthouse Square Apartments and the rent increase, which part of it is that we just talked about. I don't know if there's been anything else since then, but I know that Kristen's really good about attaching whatever's new to the agenda.
There has been nothing. I have been watching all day.
Okay. All right. And the next one. Had to do with Lockwood Apartments, which is, I believe they were referred to is it Ann Arbor Housing Commission or somewhere else?
I believe it was the Housing Commission that they were referred to.
Right. Okay, and then the last one was a senior whose neighbor makes thumping noises at night. The office manager says that there's nothing that they can do. The person's family, I think, says that he should be in assisted living, but assisted living is extremely expensive, and a lot of people can't afford that. We did recommend a couple of nonprofits in the area. When I first heard it, it didn't click that the person had dementia, and so we first recommended, what was it, the Disability Network of Washtenaw, Monroe, and Lenawee County. I hope I got that right. And then right before Kristen went on vacation, when I reread the letter, I suggested as a resource possibly Jewish Family Services, the Ageways, which is formerly the Area Agency on Aging, because both of them do provide some sort of respite hours, but they also have like kind of almost case management services, which may be helpful to the family of the neighbor. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the communications? Let's see. Councilmember Radina?
This is adjacent to the Lockwood email we got. For those who aren't aware, Lockwood is senior housing that will have a considerable number of units of affordable senior housing within it. It's opening here in my ward, Ward 3, officially next month, and I will make sure to share around with Kristen because I believe it's public. It's advertised on the Chamber's website. But they are having a public ribbon cutting and open house. And so if anyone is interested in actually attending and seeing the new Lockwood senior apartments being opened up, I'll make sure to share that out. But I think that's why we're starting to hear from this. Hopefully it sounds like some folks were able to secure some affordable senior housing there, and we'll be moving in very soon.
That's good to know. Is that the one that they're building around the Bryant area over off of off of Ellsworth?
It's on Ellsworth. Yep.
Oh, that's great because it means that some people will be able to move from courthouse over there.
Yeah, it's I think it's 65 of the units in it are designated to be affordable for at least the next 99 years or something. So yeah, it's we're very excited to see that finally get open.
Oh, good. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions or comments, then we'll move to adjournment. And we need someone to move to adjourn. I mean, we can stay here all night, but I'm sure somebody has something better to do. Commissioner Wood?
Can I just speak up?
Yep.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Commissioner Wood has moved to adjourn. Is there anyone who's going to second that?
Second.
Commissioner Chen has seconded the motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The meeting's officially adjourned. Before you go, I just want to say welcome again to our newest commissioners. And if you have any questions or concerns,